All right, what's up, world? My name is Corey. Stay trapping with Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. And today we have a lovely guest, Rachel Williams, my mentor. She put me on in the day at Yelp, and I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna do a real quick intro onto some of the stuff she's currently working on. So she's the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Motley Fool. She serves on the Executive Advisory Board for the Lesbians Who Tech and Allies. She's the Senior Advisor of DEI for Northwest Venture Partners, advisor for First Capital, former head of diversity at Yelp, and Google X. Is there anything else you wanna add to that?
Nah, nah, that's good. Folks interested, hit me up on LinkedIn.
But don't spam her though.
Oh yeah, I don't know people listen to that. I mean, LinkedIn has turned into whew, spam
Yeah.
central.
I, yeah, let's touch on that. Like how much spam do you get on LinkedIn? Or like what makes the messages so bad?
Well, there's one good thing. They do separate from people you know and people you don't know in the inbox, so that's good. So, but it's one of the only ways to drum up business, and I get that. So I'm not too mad at it because people are professional. They have the professional profiles up there, so it isn't like on other platforms on social media where it's a troll. It could be a bot or something like that. It is an actual human behind these emails. But I get hit up for um trying to sell me some kind of talent or diversity platform, or they want advice about the talent or diversity platform they're building, or partnerships. A lot of nonprofits like, hey, we got this STEM uh, uh, boot camp for, like all of so I get hit up for that. Pick your brains, lots of pick your brains. Those have decreased though. A lot of folks scared of getting into DEI, so I haven't gotten as many as those lately, but it used to be on the horrible, like, I want to do DEI. And I'm like, do you though? Do you? So, and speaking engagements and stuff. So I actually have to read all of it to make sure I'm not missing something that would be of interest. But it is a lot. I remember one day, I think I got like 75 inquiries in one day.
Whoa.
I was like, I emailed people I know at LinkedIn. I was like, is something broken over there? Like, why? They were like, no, that's just, I'm like, really? In one day? 75 people just decided to hit me up. And I know I should be grateful. I should be grateful for people even noticing me. But
Yeah.
it's a lot to manage. I had at one time hired someone just to manage the LinkedIn situation because so many,
Wow.
right after George Floyd, so many requests were coming in. And I was like, I got to hire somebody just to manage that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you like when people say, let me pick your brain? What is it about that that's like you don't like?
Look, so I have a love-hate relationship with it. I think the pick your brain, first of all, the visual is terrible, right? So like I think the whole phrasing, I don't know where it came from, but we got to throw that out. Like are you a are you a vampire? Are you like what is like that doesn't this just doesn't come across well. So that's one. Two, I think people underestimate their own capacity to offer something, right? The world was started off a barter system. I got bread, you got rice, I got this, you got that, right? So
Right.
like, what are you going to offer me? And I think people don't even think about that. And I think every human has something to offer. So that's one. I think the people's approach needs to be like, hey, I'm not sure what I could do for you, but I want to do something in exchange for you sharing your knowledge capital, your IP. Because what
Right.
I will say, being a Black woman in tech, the IP I have, hard earned, tears. Like it was not easily earned. And for people to ask me to share that with them, like I don't know if you've thought about what you're asking me to share and what you're asking me to give up, and then you're offering nothing. So I think that whole little thing is a little off-putting now. But on the other hand, I remember my early days in my career wishing I had somebody I could reach out to inside of my company, outside of my company. And so because of that trauma. I respond to most people asking me like, hey, can I just get some 15 minutes of your time or 30 minutes of your time? That's another thing too, about time. Put in there how much time you gonna take.
Yeah.
A lot of people to be like, oh, can I, like, I don't have a full hour. You know, I charge for a full hour. So like, well, how much time do you need? 15 minutes? Is it going to be 30 minutes? And, you know, so I think folks who are reaching out for support, advice, counsel need to be more explicit about what the ask is.
Yeah.
That's in life anyway, in general.
Yeah. And just to clarify, when you say IP, you mean intellectual property, right?
Yes, mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
My intellectual property, the things
Yeah.
in my head.
Yeah. So this is like a perfect leeway because I cold email you and I've asked you this twice or before, like what was it about my email? Because you get a ton. And I remember I sent you an email and I'm like, okay, she might respond. She doesn't. Hey, I'm gonna keep pushing.
Yeah.
But what was it about my code email that I sent you that you opened and we met? Like walk people through that. Like why did you decide to help me out of all the people who reached out to you?
Well, one, I was in that mode of just having a recent experience with someone who was more senior to me, another Black woman at another company that I won't name, but we all know it. All know it. We all know their leader who likes to try and bait a kickboxing fight with another leader. So I'm just gonna leave it there.
Yeah, leave it there.
Yeah, leave it there. But and that person did not respond well, did not respond to any of my emails, did not respond to an introduction from another leader to me. And then I met them in person and they were kind of like, oh, that email, like just real stank. And I didn't like it. And so I had at that moment said, anybody who reaches out to me, they're gonna get some kind of response, something like, but your email was very professional. And like you did have most of the things that I talked about, which is like what you wanted, what you needed, how much time, what you had to offer. And I was like, okay, so this person's organized and clear about what the ask is. Let me spend some time. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, yeah, and for everybody for context, so I'm originally from North Carolina where I grew up at, and there was a conference called Tech Inclusion that was created by Wayne Sutton and his now wife, right?
Yes.
Um, gosh, what's her name? I'm like blanking on her name.
Belinda Epler.
Yep, I'm going to give her credit. And
Yeah.
so I went through the speaker list or whatever, and I was like, cool, well, these people here to help Black people. So, hey, I'm getting some code email,
So
right?
smart. That's so smart.
Um, and I had a trip pre-planned to Cali. It was like 10 days. So I'm like, let me see how this is gonna shake out. So before I went, I emailed you and probably like, I don't know, like 40 or 50 people. Pretty much all the speakers if I was able to put out their email.
This is such a
'Cause
good story.
so the background of that is that back then there was no way to guess people's email. There was no like SaaS tools. Like now you can pull it from LinkedIn. I was literally guessing. I was like, okay, I realized that Yelp likes to use first name, last name, and then Yelp. I just was like figuring it out. And so I just was guessing people's emails if I couldn't find them. So I go to Tech Inclusion and then me and you, I set up a bunch of meetings in person. And so when me and you met, you chewed me out. You was like, you don't know that Google and Yelp were beefing. Nah, nah, nah. I'm like, no, I didn't. But then I'm like, let me go research that, right? Right. And then I remember you said, hey, what you doing with this paper? Like, we don't take paper resumes over here, but it was very East Coast. And so
Mhm.
I had already had it in Dropbox that you telling me. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Check that box. Because I knew it was gonna be I expected it to be hard to find a job moving there. So when you were tough on me, I didn't take it personal. I'm like, okay,
Did
this this
not. You did not.
this
You
is
took all my feedback. And by
this
the
is what
time
I
I got back, here's the thing. By the time I got back to my desk, I had it in my email.
yeah. Yeah, the minute
And
I stepped out of the building, when my signal got on my phone, I said, here you go. Phew.
I was like, this was serious.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, that's how I got my first job at Yelp. Working at Yelp was very, very tough, but it definitely propelled me into tech and particularly in the Bay. So
Yeah.
Definitely. I miss those days, but I don't miss those days because I didn't really make much money.
Oh, no, no, I neither did I. I think back to those days, I'm like, oh, it was fun. It was
Yeah.
hard. I wasn't making any money. So I feel you on that. I was just talking to someone else, a former Yelper, about the same exact thing. Like they didn't pay a whole lot, but the culture was fun and cool and this. But yeah, I don't miss not making that money.
Right,
I do
right,
miss all the people and the fun we had and all that stuff. Yeah.
right. And so, because you that was your second time at Yelp when I came. So what did you do at Yelp previously before becoming the head of diversity? And then like why did you come back? What made you decide to come back?
Yeah. I was running talent before recruiting. I mean, the words have changed. I was running recruiting from 2008 to 2010, maybe 2011. I can't remember. And that was pre-IPO, so that was before they went public, and it was definitely crazy times. Startups are wild. You got to really eat your Wheaties and really have a stomach for that because it is 24/7. You better believe in the dream. You know what I'm saying? So I was there believing in the dream, and I was on my third boss in like 2 years or something like that.
Hmm.
And the third one was a doozy. He had no HR background. He was a friend of someone higher up in the company. So he just kind of got the job, the old boys network, that thing. And he spent a lot of time trying to understand what he was supposed to be doing, which meant he was asking all of us on the team what we were doing all day. So not only did we have to do our work, which was, like startups, that's 50, 60 hours of work, period, in startup. Like you are not going home. I remember I telling my mom, I'm like, oh, they serve us lunch and dinner. My mom was like, because they want you there, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I was like, I didn't even what? She right. But it's a lot of work. And so on top of our daily work, we had to explain to this man how to do the job that he was hired. And we were all very upset by that. And I think that is one thing these companies need to take notice of. Like when you make the mistake of putting someone who doesn't know what they're doing into a leadership role, the tax, the extra work that and labor that the folks reporting to this human being have to carry is a lot and could cause burnout. So most of the team started leaving because we were like, why are we explaining our jobs to somebody who's getting paid way more than us, who's supposed to be the leader and whatever. The special thing he was doing with me though was he was telling me that I wasn't doing a good job. What I was killing it as per usual. But he was telling me I wasn't. This is the early gaslighting. Before I even knew what gaslighting was,
Yes,
and
like, yeah.
thank you TikTok. But but he would tell me I wasn't doing a good job, but stealing my ideas and taking them to leadership as if they were his own ideas. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, you wouldn't steal ideas from someone who is not doing their job, right? Who does that? Why would you steal ideas from somebody you don't think is smart? So clearly you think I'm smart.
Mm.
Anyway, me and him didn't, I quit. And I tell this tale to folks because it's multi-layered. But for those of us who are underrepresented and in a pre-IPO situation, like you don't know the meaning of stock. And I suggest you go and find, research, look up, call somebody, hit somebody up on LinkedIn, ask for 15 minutes to pick their brain, blah, blah, blah. About stock. So you can learn about what is stock options, what happens if the company goes public, what is a restricted stock unit, all of these things. I had no idea. My stock, I think I had like 20,000 shares at $5 stock options, which means, you have to buy the shares, which is fine. But I left that on the table when I left. I'm thinking I'm leaving him, but I was also leaving money
Mm.
because 2.5, 3 years later, Yelp goes public and the
Mm.
stock soars to $100. Now, anybody can do quick math. That was millions of dollars that I left on the
Yeah.
table because I
Yeah.
was made to feel some type of way by some inexperienced leader. So, one,
Mm.
I didn't have anybody internally to go to and talk to about that because he was friends with some of the higher ups. So I already felt like, well, That's their boy. I'm not in the club. So who do I have? So that's
Yeah.
also the reason why whenever someone who is underrepresented, underserved reaches out to me, I want to be that person that I didn't have in the company. Because I would have told me, now you better figure out a way around this mofo, right? Because millions of dollars is on the table that could be life-changing for you and your family. So we can figure out a way around him. Now, funny thing is, he stayed. He turned over the team twice. Like, people were just leaving because he was a poor leader. He got moved to another area, but he also became a millionaire. Boop.
Mm.
So when I got the call to go back to work on the things that I had called out in my exit interview, because I had an exit interview, um, I took the job because I wanted to fix the problem that I experienced for everybody else that was coming behind me. And the culture. Like, I tell people, culture of a company, and it's good and it's fun and it's supportive and there's a lot of just like good, smart people there. That's where you want to be. And I know
Right.
it's hard in this remote environment, but back then, we was in the office, like I said, 40, 50 hours a week. So this was a people you were spending more time with than your family. And that was super important to me. And so I went back because of that the opportunity and the culture.
Mm. So talk about exit interviews, because it's like I've been laid off, just recently got laid off. And so some companies will say, hey, you got to do this exit interview.
Yeah.
Like, but you actually don't. We'd love for, because
Don't,
you
you
work
don't.
in HR, but yeah, tell us what an exit interview
Don't.
is. Like, should you do it? Should you not do it?
Listen, I think exit interviews are useless. I'm gonna be real. I think stay interviews are better if you're really trying to improve the company, meaning before an employee gets to the point where they're exiting, you're, as an HR rep or whomever, are talking to people and be like, hey, what's your experience like here? How are you doing? What's your plans? Are you planning to stay over the next couple years? What's going on? Because the exit interview, first of all, folks are gonna lie. I mean, I did, but for the most part, no one's going to tell the truth about all the things they experience because they're thinking about, hey, what if my future companies call this place? I want to make sure that I'm still in good standing. I don't want to burn this bridge. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm leaving for a greater opportunity. I'm leaving for blah, blah, blah. Right. So you go tell the truth. And then if you do tell the truth, which is a risk, right? Now you put yourself in a position where it's written down somewhere that you was, upset and all this stuff. And also you could say something that could get you into some kind of legal situation. And most times with those exit interviews, that's what they're checking for. They're checking to see if you're leaving for a potential case in the future. And if you say that you're not, and then well, they got it written down that you said that nothing was wrong. So how is it that you're filing a case against them now? So the exit interview, very tricky. If you are not feeling empowered, because I already had another job when I left Yelp, and I was feeling myself, and I definitely wanted to give them the middle. So I just told the truth. And I told it to the COO. I don't even know if it was a real exit interview. Like, he didn't ask me, but I kind of just told him since he called to see what happened. I was like, well, here's what happened. Your boy, blah, 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 blah. I went off. He said it was so colorful, my explanation. It's why he remembered to call me to come back. So it worked out because
Uh,
I let him have it. I let him have it. I let him know about all the things that was happening with no fear because I had another job.
yeah.
So it worked out in this particular instance, but I wouldn't recommend exit interviews to be honest. To be
Mm.
honest.
Yeah, I always kind of thought that in the back of my mind, like they're more for a way to limit like liability for the company.
Mhm.
Um, but that's crazy. Your exit interview is what got you the job again.
It is. It is. Apparently I cussed. He was like, "You were cussing." I was like, "I was."
Oh wow. Yeah. That was a Rick James moment when you had
It
your pick.
was. Apparently I was hot about it.
Yeah. But do you think that he had also heard other things too?
Well, yeah, people were leaving the team. So, that's a signal. And some of those people didn't get the exit interview or didn't say anything on their way out. But yeah, if good people are starting to leave, and I think that's what it was, because I reported to him for a bit, so he knew I wasn't all the things that this new leader was saying personally. So thank
Right.
goodness, I have been performing, and he knew that like something's not adding up here. Um, and he listened, which I have to say to all the folks too. Make sure your work is beyond reproach, is impeccable. Because if you're not performing or something, you don't really have a leg to stand on. Your feedback doesn't matter. It's not nobody cares.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
I think you should go more in depth with that. What do you mean by impeccable? Do you mean like do good work? Do you mean take a track record, like write down all the major projects you're doing and the results? Like,
Hey, listen, yes, I learned, I don't remember exactly when I learned it, probably earlier in my career when I was working for a smaller woman-owned boutique recruiting firm, to keep a list of all your accomplishments, keep a list when people drop you a random email and be like, hey, that was a good presentation or whatever offhanded comment that you have written down somewhere, keep a file. I learned that from her, and because you'll forget, you working, you on to the next thing, you forget all the things that you did, 2, 3 years into a job. So start a file, start a Google Doc, whatever it is, that list out all the things that you've participated in, any ideas you brought up that even if it was manifested in another department and when you said it, and like, yes, write it all down, keep a list. When I left Google X, because here's the thing, some people, they try and disparage you when you leave companies, because they take it personal and they'd be like, well, she wasn't good anyway. Receipts. Let me present the scroll of receipts.
yeah,
And I had the receipts. So yeah.
yeah. And it doing that comes in handy, especially when you're redoing your resume, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it takes the guessing work of what to put on your resume, right? And so then literally all you have to work on is crafting the story about what you did and making sure you're following the STAR method or whatever
Yeah.
you go on. So yeah, I love that. Yeah. Like when I was at my last company, I was like, okay, I presented this, I did this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
actually kept it in the Notion doc and
yeah.
then I
Well,
moved it to Google Drive.
keep it. You have to keep the record. And I think a lot of people don't manage. I think they wait to be managed. They wait for the recognition. Like, oh, surely some leader is going to see that I'm doing like, nah. Nobody's coming, boo-boos. Nobody. So you got to keep your own record. You got to be your own champion. You have to manage yourself. Like, because when it comes to performance time, because that was another thing too. Companies like Google have a serious performance management process that takes weeks, and
Wow.
you have to fill out your 360 review of what you've been doing. So if you haven't been keeping record of what you've been doing, it is very hard to fill out all of those documents to prove that you deserve a raise or anything. So that's also why I started doing it, because I was like, oh, performance management here is like wild, like wild. As a matter of fact, I heard some people at Google used to hire someone externally to write up their because you have to do a self-assessment or whatever. Like they would hire people to write their self-assessments. Because it's all about your communication, which brings me to another point. One of your questions in the thing was like, how do you get from individual contributor to executive? And a lot of it has to do with how much people like you, I'm gonna be honest. But another part of that is your communication, both written and verbal. And I know AI is taking over. So, there's some help out there to fill some of the gaps on the written piece.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to communicate, persuade verbally. That's one thing I learned at Yelp, which is every single leader could present their ass off. Like we were so excited to go to our company all hands. I forgot how often they were, but we would be like, because we knew every presenter was gonna bring it. Like it was gonna be, it wasn't gonna be nobody was up there fumbling around or talking over the words or missing things. Like it was well done. And that in my mind, I was like, okay, if I ever want to get to that level, I need to be able to present. And I haven't seen it fail. Same at Google. Like every leader, there isn't a weak presenter. And I think that is one thing AI won't be able to fix for us for now.
Yeah,
For now,
yeah,
the human connection, the human, being able to persuade and sell. Yeah, got to
yeah.
do
One
that.
of one of my friends, her name is X. She did an interview. It was on the Earn Your Leisure Network. I think it was High Level Conversation,
Oh, love them.
and she talked about how AI is a parrot, right? And she's like, it
That's right.
doesn't actually think. It's just repeating all of the data sets
All of it hurt.
that
Yep.
put into it, right? So, um, yeah, like I'm kind of, and we'd love to get your thoughts on it. It's like, do you actually see AI eliminating a lot of jobs in tech, or do you see it like more like an assistant to help people get more efficient at their job?
I mean, eventually some jobs will become obsolete, like with any industrial revolution, technological revolution, things are gonna go away. But new jobs are gonna be created. So that's why I'm like, everybody calm down with the fear. Uh, there's never been really a time where there isn't work for people, work to do. Um, you know, cars change things and how people work, and we don't use the railroads as much as we used to, and this and that. But who's missing those things? No, nobody, right? So the new things that are coming, it still will be exciting. I worry about the access because we already have issues with one. There are parts of places in this country that don't have access to the internet still to this day. Like that's
Yeah,
wild to me, but it is real. Which then, okay, so those people who don't have internet access don't have all of the information that you and I have being here on the West Coast or wherever where we have access. So
right.
this is just going to create a deeper divide between the haves and the have-nots of the access to all of these learning tools and this new information. So I worry about that deepening more so than jobs going away because new jobs are going to spring up.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, I remember when I was living in the Bay, Hunters Point was a internet desert, and it's
Hands
like kind of
on,
crazy. Like,
like
I mean, that's yeah,
30 miles from Silicon Valley, where every technology that the world uses is created. Y'all not trying to, never mind. Let's not. Yeah, that just chaps my hide. Mm-mm.
yeah. I mean, I gotta ask the obvious question. Why do you think that is?
Hmm.
If you want to move on, we can.
I think it's at the intersection of so many issues, and I think that's why this work, diversity, equity, inclusion is so hard because it is political, it is racial, it is the economics. It is a multi faceted issue that no one really wants to pick apart to fix. But, most folks in underserved communities just don't have a voice in the right rooms, in the right spaces, don't have advocates who are willing to speak up for them in those spaces. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and the history behind Hunters Point, like I remember when I one of my former friends who grew up in Hunters Point, that's where they built the Hiroshima bomb that got dropped in Japan. In a I'll say allegedly because I don't know for sure, but there's still residue in the ground
Oh,
from the nuclear
mm,
the
well, right, allegedly.
allegedly. And he told me, he said he's seen certain bugs and they just look, he used the phrase, gosh, it's such a Bay Area phrase, but I can't think of the word. But he said like looked weird. I'm paraphrasing, but he said the bugs looked weird, like they were
Mm,
contaminated or something. And
mm,
he told me about one of his friends who dug into the ground. I guess he was a construction worker, and you can see it be like illuminated, like it was like, So I'm saying all this allegedly, but he told me in depth, like, yeah, and I'm like, wow, like that's crazy. Like it's a
environmental
toxic.
racism is real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wow. So, and that stuff from nuclear bombs, it takes like, I think you call them forever chemicals, because it takes
Yeah.
like thousands of years for them to actually break down, if not
Yeah.
millions or whatever that number is. So
Yeah.
yeah, crazy. Um,
World is crazy.
yeah. So when you came back to Yelp, one of the things you told me, you said that we talked about allyship and how important that is. Could you
Mm.
tell us about how important that is and how that helped you like have a better outcome your second time around at Yelp?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. Like, I think mentors are great and you should build, what do they call it? Your board of directors, if you will, and all of that stuff. But a sponsor has that special extra something, something, which is they actually have the ability to influence your future because they have power and influence. And I had a sponsor in a senior leader at Yelp, the COO, which he always kind of gets shy when I say it, and I don't even think it was intentional or purposeful. Like I didn't go to him and be like, "Hey, can you be my sponsor?" It really just happened um, because I reported to him the first time around back in the day, and we had a good working relationship. But I saw the influence and power that he had, and I tell people when you first get to a job, spend the first 30 days just trying to figure out the spheres of influence. And it's not always what you think. So you really just kind of release who you think it is and really go seeking out who it really is. So you'll hear names, certain names repeated often, like so and so said, and it's like, okay, well, who's so and so? Because so and so is the person running this place. And it might
Right.
not be the CEO, it might be somebody else. Or I also look for teams, like what teams are getting the most resources, both human and financial. So sometimes it's sales teams, like sales teams were running kind of the show at Yelp
Um,
for sure, because they were bringing in the revenue. And other companies, it's the engineering team because you got a software product that that you're selling, and so like they're running things. So figure it out. Sit back for 30 days and figure that out. And it just so happens that the COO was one person at Yelp that everybody was like, well, he said, and they would run, and I would just see the fear in their eyes. He wasn't a scary person, but it was just like this myth that like you didn't want to get on his bad side, which I never saw, or that if you knew that if you used his name, that folks would like straighten up.
right.
So I don't know at what point in time that whole rumor or how he built that reputation, but he had it.
Yeah.
And I remember like in the early days, I didn't know what I was doing, be honest. And nobody else knew how to tell me what I was doing because I was the first person. And it was in the early days. There weren't that many chief diversity officers in tech in 2014 at that moment. We all kind of got our jobs at the same time. We were all kind of figuring it out. And I remember like, okay, so I need to get the leaders together. Now, what am I going to get the leaders together about? Like, I know I need their support, but like, I don't want to waste their time.
Right.
And so I remember like pulling together a meeting once a week with the leaders, which was doing too much. I had to scale that back because it was like we were just looking at each other at a certain point. And I was like, well, all right. So but yeah, but I remember Jeff saying, hey, I don't know what this meeting's about, but I'm gonna show up and support whatever it is you say. And I was like, all right. And literally just having his presence in the room because of his reputation,
Yeah.
folks
Yeah.
were folks were paying apt attention to what I was saying, and I would ask things, and they would look at him, and he wouldn't even be hardly, in the room, but
Be
he'd
on
be
his
saying
phone.
he'd be on phone, but they'd be like, "Oh yeah, Rachel, I'll sign up for that, or I'll do this and I'll do that," and I saw a dramatic difference when he took a step back and just remained on the board and no more, longer was active in the day to day. Honey, folks started blowing me off. Like they didn't have to do the work no more. I was like, oh, okay, so I got to find a new sponsor. but I think a sponsor who has some clout, respect, that's what it was. He had respect. Is so important to advancing not just DEI work, but anybody's work. So I'm grateful to him for the years that he lent his power, his privilege, and influence on behalf of the work, because it wouldn't have gotten done.
Mm. So how does someone become like that powerful in a company? Like what are from what you've seen? Because I
Mm,
mean, technically, you're a sponsor now too, right? Or can be.
yeah, for sure. I think he was really good at his job. He at pulling, operations means, he had to know a little bit about a lot, or a lot about a lot,
Yeah, yeah,
to make sure that all the systems were working, all the people were talking, and things were getting done. And at the end of the day, the folks who can make things happen and get things done, they always gonna have the power. They're always gonna have the power. So you project managers out there who make things happen, uh, you have significant power. But I think that was one. So he had a really good reputation on getting things done. He was fair, and I think you always knew that you could go to him and he would listen thoughtfully, and like he wasn't gonna play like the bias game, or I like this person, or there wasn't any of that. He was about the business. So if what you were coming to him about was going to impact the business positively, then you probably were gonna get a yes. And I think a lot of people don't think about that, their ask. Like, is that project you're bringing up gonna suck more money out of the company and take them down a different road than the stated goals or our strategy? Are you off the strategy? Um, then that's a no. But if what you're doing is ultimately going to lead to revenue, business, and increase, I don't know, customer base, whatever, then yeah. So he was always about business, so never personal. That's that's a good one.
yeah,
Never personal.
yeah.
Um, and I think those two things, like getting things done and like it's business, never personal. But he was personable, which was funny. He was a personable human, but you always knew like you better come to him with some stuff, not just any old idea you were thinking about on a BART train. Like you need to come with it.
Right, right.
It can be no half-baked idea. Like you need to like have fully thought it out. So I think
Yeah,
holding people to that standard, and then getting his stamp of approval, that really helped people around him become better. I think back to like, I always like to use sports. I love sports.
mhm.
And I know some people are like, oh, you shouldn't use sports because it alienates other people and blah, blah. It's not inclusive, but I love sports, so I'm going to use it. But like a person like Michael Jordan, it wasn't just about his own, like he was good. He made Scotty better.
Yeah,
He made everybody else around him better. And that is one of the things I think about a leader that has the respect in a company, is that they probably, they're that person that makes everybody else better because they're holding standards.
right, right. So you talked about it a little bit. You educated me at Tech Inclusion when you gave like a presentation, and you actually thanked Jesse Jackson, I think it was, for writing that letter. Can
Yeah.
you talk about what led up to, I think it was him and the NCAACP also? They wrote a letter to all the tech companies. Like what was the reason behind him starting? I know that it's kind of obvious to me, but like what was the backstory behind that?
Listen, Jesse is a civil rights leader. We all know that.
Right.
And this was not his first time challenging an industry. You know, back in the days, he had challenged, automobile, like, several different industries along the way. Um, it just so happens that the tech industry was his next place that he wanted to disrupt and ask some questions of. And he was a shareholder. He had Google stock, smart. And so he was able to attend a shareholder meeting held by Google. And being the prolific speaker that he is, he decided that he wanted to stand up and challenge and say something at that share meeting. And I think that was in 2013 that he did that. He also knew the power of how to use the media and get coverage. And I think, because of his years of activism. And so the tech industry didn't want that heat, right? That he was gonna bring. He could get the media to follow him to the meeting where they capture him asking, and no one wanted to be embarrassed publicly in that way. So he did that, and then he wrote letters to most of the major tech companies, kind of just making some inquiries as a
Yeah.
shareholder, which people need to think about that. When when you get stock options, when you have stock options in a company, like that is some power. So you need to think about that as you're working in these companies. But he used that, sent the letters. And some companies ignored him, as is their right. And other companies responded, well, wow, maybe we should get somebody to look into all of these questions he's asking about the diversity of our workforce and this and that. Now, I love me some Jesse. Me and him to had some good laughs, and I thank him every time I see him. And I know he's not in the greatest of health right now, and we're getting ready, losing a leader. Hopefully some others will spring up.
Yeah.
But I wish he had called me before he sent them letters, because his original ask around the diversity of the workforce got conversation started, but you and I know is not the full conversation.
Right.
Because just having a bunch of people on the roll books and not worried about how they're treated
Oh,
while
yeah.
they're there,
Yeah.
not worried about how they're able to move up or not while they're there, the exit rates of said people, because you just looking at how we're getting them in. Nobody asked how quickly are you exiting the people out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really a full picture. If I were to critique, that would be my only critique. But I'm super grateful to him for getting the conversation started, and getting me a job, basically, because I love this work.
Yeah.
Even in the tough times that we're experiencing right now, where it's under attack and being used by the media a lot
Right.
in the wrong ways, and people are fearful of the work. I'm still here for it. I still believe it is worthy investment for any company.
So do you think 11 years later, do you think we're in a better position? And when I say we, like Black people, Latino,
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah, for sure. Listen, I'm a Gen Xer. I have a baby boomer mama. And one thing we don't do is talk across generations. And one thing we don't do in this work is talk a lot about the generational diversity. I talk to my mama a lot, and someone who grew up in Jim Crow South. And I say those words and they kind of land with some people, but like, please go look it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is not as lighthearted as I'm saying it.
Mhm.
She sees the difference
Mhm.
in her lifetime. And so I know we want this vast change. We want all the top 10 tech company CEOs to be Black and to be like, I know that's what we want, but there has been change in the last 10 years, and maybe not as speedy, but we're trying to undo hundreds of years of systems that have been placed, power structures that have been in place. So it's not going to happen in just a decade. But I do believe that we have seen some change in the last few years in a positive way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've thought a lot about this, and I actually think the real change are where you're going to see like more empowering of us in tech is going to come through private equity firms, venture
Yeah.
capital firms, hedge funds.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, I've heard countless stories. I remember when I first like started working in tech, one of my close friends, Dad, he told me about a guy who met his investor on a plane, and then after the plane ride, he wrote him $1 million check. And I thought he was lying. Because I'm like, and from the world I come from,
That does not happen.
that
Right.
doesn't happen. And I hear more of those happening to,
Mhm.
predominantly white people or Asian, Indian, right? And so like how do we actually, because I think that's where the inclusion starts, because me and you know about opportunities in business that are because of where we come from, that other VCs just don't understand because they never fully experience it. They don't have that it's not necessarily a part of their culture per se, like these certain innovations. So like how do we, you know, because you have experience being on VCs and stuff like that, like how do we break into VC to actually like help solve that issue?
Yeah, well there we have more Black owned and run funds than ever in our lifetime. Like Zeal Capital, I don't know if you know Nasir. We have funds. Fearless Fund is under attack
Harlem,
right now, but
Harlem
Ariana,
Capital. Yeah.
yeah, right. And we've got Arlen Hamilton with her. Like, so listen, the fact that we even have those, we did not have those 10 years ago.
True. True.
So that
Yeah.
so I want everybody to acknowledge that yes, things are happening. Now we are behind for sure. You think about some of the private equity warrant firms and VCs like Greylock, Sequoia, Kleiner Perkins. They've been around for 40, 50, 60. So
Yeah.
so we're a little bit behind here. I
Right.
think when I will feel better when I start to see more Black, brown, underrepresented founders who are at Series B, Series C, meaning their company has raised funds, seen some traction, gotten a customer base, started to, get some revenue in, and they're able to raise more funds. We're still at the pre-seed Series A, just at the beginning, but we should be excited about that. We should be excited about the beginning. Also, I think, Black people, just talking about Black people because that's my experience, but Black people, um, we have money. Like we spend $1 trillion a year in this country. So we have so money somewhere. So if we could just start to have bigger conversations, I love Earn Your Leisure. They're having a conversation, they're reaching a certain audience, but even their conversation could be bigger, could be more expansive.
Yeah.
That, we have folks, I forget his name right now, but he just raised a couple $1 billion. Was it $20 billion? Um, oh, White. Oh my God, why can't I remember his name? Anyway, we have billionaires now.
Now you're gonna get me to take. I can't think of who
No,
it
I
is.
gotta look it up. I gotta look it up. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna look it up. Hold on. Okay. Billy Black. Hold on. And when I say his name, we're both gonna be like, oh yeah. Um, oh shoot. Wait a second. Why are we going way back? I do, sometimes Google. Robert Smith. Robert Smith.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. Right. Robert Smith. So, like we're at a really, I would say, a renaissance time right now where we just need to have more expansive conversations to understand what's happening in finance, what the stock market is all about. Like, if we have more of those, maybe we'll spend less money on purchasing bags, which I'm guilty of, purchasing designer stuff, which I'm guilty of, and funneling our money back into founders, which is something we're used to. My mom was an entrepreneur. She had her own beauty salon, right, in our neighborhood. And entrepreneurship is something that Black people are used to, are good at. Like, so this is just the next level of entrepreneurship. This is not the mom and pop store shop, the beauty salon, the barbershop. This is barbershop online app, which I hear that that's doing well. The barbershop online, the kind of, anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're there. I say we hang in here and
Hmm.
support and keep having conversations like this where we're trying to really open up folks' interests and stuff beyond the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef.
Yeah. I like last weekend it was cool, but then I remember thinking like, and maybe I'm at a different point in my life, but I'm like, who's really benefiting from this? Right. And I'm talking to my boy and I'm like, Google they made Google a lot of money, and I'm like, I don't own Google directly, but I own it through some like ETFs, and I'm like,
Right.
well, I'm getting paid through that, and then they're both under the same distribution company.
Yes,
And then
exactly.
if you listen to the raps, it's almost like they heard each other's songs before they pop. Before,
Mhm.
because one of the songs, Kendrick referenced a Chinese food restaurant in
Oh
Toronto.
yeah,
You
right.
see Drake eating in that restaurant, probably like 4 in the morning or whatever, right? And I'm like, this is interesting, right? Like, I, I like it for because it's an homage to like old school rap. I mean,
Battles. Yeah.
I don't think it comes close to like No Vaseline or like
That's what I tell people. The
Tupac. Like,
ether, no Vaseline. Come on.
yeah,
No, I remember those days.
yeah,
It's a distraction though, and I wish we would just get over it. But like, if maybe rap about the ETFs and the
yeah.
entrepreneurs. I don't know. I mean, it's entertaining, but like, this is why. This is why we are not raising Series B and Series C.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, Rachel. I want to go back to so the company I used to work at, Aurora Solar, one of the founders was Nigerian, and I can't tell you how like inspiring it was to see him. So we had a conversation and stuff, and 2 weeks after I joined, my stock options doubled in value. And so he does an internal call with us, and he's just like, "Yeah, I didn't think those investors were serious, so I just hung up the call." And the CEO kept talking to him. He was chief financial officer.
Mhm.
I'm actually going to be interviewing him in September. His
Nice.
name is Sam or Dele. He's Nigerian.
Mhm.
And I just remember he was just like, "Yeah, I didn't take him serious, so I just got off the call." And I remember like, "Yo, that's crazy." And so that 2 weeks after I joined, I think they raised 250 million, and then like a year later they did another 250 million or something like that.
There you go.
But it was just like it was just so inspiring to see like the head of your company, be black. And what I tell people is like it's hard to be racist and work for a black founder. Like how can you and so like a lot of the people that worked there, we were all like diverse and stuff. So it was like very cool.
Mhm.
That's probably one of my best experiences working at a company, honestly, just from that perspective. Um,
And majority group gets to feel that all the time.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. But I mean,
Just
it's
saying.
yeah. Yeah, like I have this conversation with my friends about ownership and we need to buy more and stuff. And I'm like, even my fiance, and I'm like, you talking about doing this? I'm like, I can be buying Bitcoin with this. I even, we had a conversation about um when we start planning our wedding, I'm like, I want everybody just to give us Bitcoin and Ethereum. And she looked at me, she's like, my family don't know nothing about that. And I'm like, but baby, this joint flips 10x to 20x every 4 years.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like that's how I think about it, you know what I'm saying? So but yeah, we definitely need to do better with spending our money.
Yes.
Like I think about the Black Wall Street in Tulsa. I think for like every dollar that left they kept like $20 in or something like that.
I think about that a lot, a lot. Today, our dollars do not stay in our community. I think it's hours, not even a full day. So we're just like,
Yeah,
mm,
yeah, like, and just I mean ownership is what's keeping me afloat right now. Like if I didn't have any of my money in the market in stocks and ETFs and crypto, I'll be in a bad position right now. But because I have it, I'm like, cool. Like it's, I have something to lean on.
and
So
I think people don't
also have, yeah,
understand that.
yeah, yeah. And I keep my expenses low, but it definitely helps when you see your money growing. You like, man, I wish I would have put more in last year. Like,
Ooh. I had one during the pandemic. I had one stock. So I was like, what are people gonna need? What always during these kind of times? And you know, petroleum is one of those things. And I did not, I should have got more because, you know how much we were paying for gas at one point in time?
yeah,
Ridiculous.
yeah,
But Thankfully my stock did well. My stock pick did well while I was paying $7 for a
Yeah.
gallon for my gas. But yeah, it can be fun. Yes, it's heartbreaking. Yes, it's a risk, but buying that Gucci bag is a risk too, because it's gonna be dated by the next season that it comes out. So,
Yeah.
you know.
And now the knockoffs look just as good as
Wait,
the
listen,
official.
listen, I have some wealthier friends who buy the knockoffs because they're like, first of all, I'm gonna put my money in the stock. Why would I spend 25,000 on a Birkin when that 25,000 is gonna make me 75,000 in 2 years? Now, Birkins are a little bit of an investment, a real one, if you are gonna get them, but no, because they're wealthy, no one is even thinking twice that their Birkin is not real. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So do Birkins really go up in value?
They do. They
Oh,
do.
I might need to buy
It's
me one.
almost like stock. It's almost like stock. The company sets the price, the rarity of it sets the price, all that stuff. And then like a couple years later, I mean, same with Louis. Louis has been going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the LVMH, the owner of that,
mhm.
is one of the top five wealthiest people. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how is that possible? Like,
I mean, some of them, not all the bags, ladies, not all the bags, not all the bags, my friends, like
yeah,
some of them, but I would take my chances in the stock over that for sure. Just from
yeah,
what I've seen in the last few years. And right now, if you got a little bit of cash right now, is the time to get in on some things.
yeah. I think I don't so I always gotta say this. I'm not a
Never mind.
certified
Neither am
advisor. So take what
I.
I'm saying.
Hobbyist. I'm a
Hey,
hobbyist.
but I do think stuff's gonna get it's gonna get cheaper. So like if you look at the stock market operates on a 4-year cycle, right? And so we're in the last year of the last presidential cycle. So
Yeah.
I saw some stats that said June usually is the best month to buy stuff because when it gets the cheapest. But I also would look at like September and October too.
Mhm.
Because I made that mistake 4 years ago when the market was just going down. I'm like, oh, I need to sell my Tesla stock, and then I end up buying it back um, at a loss or whatever. But it was just like if I had understood things then, I would have been like, all
Yeah.
right, let me just dump into Tesla
Yeah.
or into whatever stock I was looking at that time. But yeah, I do think things might get cheaper. Not 100% sure, but I do potentially think things are gonna get cheaper.
It's a risk, but
Yeah, it's big risk, yeah.
but there's reward. There's reward in risk. So
So how long have you been into like investing in stocks and stuff like that?
mm, whew, I don't know. Let me see when that start happening. Probably around the Google 2018, really. So late. Um investing on my own anyway. I've
Mhm.
always okay, this would let people know. If you have a 401k, like I said, options at your job, like you need to know what it is that you have. You need to understand what a 401k does. You need to like all of that stuff, the matching and where your money, the index funds is going into. So a lot of people are investing but don't know they're investing.
Right.
So I would say it started then, just doing it through those channels. But I started playing around on my own when I had a little extra cash anyway. So that's another thing too. I wasn't playing with like, my PG&E, my electricity bill money and nothing like that. I was playing with like extra cash. I was like, okay, so I got a little 5K. Let me see if I can make it grow. So I think, and it doesn't have to be 5K, it could be a couple hundred or whatever. I got me an E-Trade account, which was easy because, it was on the app and figured that out.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how I got started. And then I also dated somebody who was into it too. He like and fashioned himself a day trader and this and that. Whatever. I'm not that wild, but
Yeah. Yeah.
we were having fun together and my girlfriends. So a lot of my girlfriends are into investing in stocks and we talk a lot and be like, hey, have you heard about this one? Oh, look this one up. Oh, I just put money into this one. And so I think conversations are changing. And if your friends, your group of friends ain't talking about this kind of thing, you need to get yourself another group of friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
So
and and I have this conversation. I had this conversation with one of my friends, Shabazz. I don't know if you know him. He does like film. He makes films and stuff. He's from Florida, and I was just like, being black and an entrepreneur, or what have you, like it's harder for us to raise money. So we have to put money into the market because these investors, when they step to us, they're going to be like, well, how much skin you got in the game? Oh, well, I
yes,
got this amount of stock I'm borrowing against it to fund this. So
yeah.
then they're going to take you more serious, right? And it's just like we have to be in the market. Um, like
But see,
I
you
yeah,
knew that you could borrow against stock. Boop, boop. Not everybody knows that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's so much. There's
yeah.
so much.
Yeah, I when the pandemic happened, that scared the living crap out of me because it showed me how vulnerable I was, and I just was just like studying everything. Um, and like I think people should really look at their compensation plans, and I'm not just
Yes.
talking about your salary and your bonus if you get that. I'm talking about like so at my last company we had a HSA match. And so
Yes.
I chose the high deductible insurance health plan because I don't go to the doctor that much. I just do my minimums, annual checkups and stuff like that. And I think for every dollar I put in, they were matching a dollar or something like that or whatever. And so I effectively gave myself a raise, and I was like very perplexed, like why aren't other people doing this? Matter of fact, I actually have an HSA that's invested in the market. I actually own Microsoft stock in it. I own Boo. So it's like, yeah, like I can talk on and on about it, but it's like we as people, we
Hmm.
um really need to take advantage of this stuff because these companies, as much as we work hard for them, it's not their responsibility for them to make us wealthy. And I think that's what a lot of people are getting confused with.
You need to say that again. You need to say that again. That,
Yeah. We,
that.
we these companies, we don't work for these companies with them to make us wealthy. That's
Oh,
our
no.
responsibility, right?
It's right.
Yeah.
That is in fact not their goal to do that at all. And a lot of the benefits go unused. I part of what I have been doing, which I'm going to formalize the business, is counseling people and coaching people around their offer letters and what to ask for and what to look for. Because one thing, when as a recruiter in my former life, I noticed that there was a difference between how underrepresented, underserved looked at their offer letters and read
Mhm.
them and negotiated. And then there was a difference between majority group and how they negotiated and looked at their offer letters. And we definitely do not look at it in its totality. We definitely don't be like, hey, send me the entire benefits package as well. Like this offer letter is one thing, but send me the whole benefits. Like what's going on here? Like no one ever asked me, do you all match on the 401k? Like care, like that's how you that those are the things that get you to millionaire.
Yeah.
Like all of those things coupled together, not just your base and your bonus, but all of those things over time. So
Yeah. Like I ask for everything. Like what's my L&D budget? What's do y'all offer HSAs? Like that's important. Like I can't I don't think I'll join another company that doesn't offer HSA, like a high deductible insurance plan. Like no.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um I ask for everything. Like,
Everything. Yeah, I know you do. Because you
I
on it.
I negotiate every offer that I've gotten. Oh, funny thing is, and I'm sure you may have had an experience like this with your mom. So when I was up for a promotion to go from sales into product, the recruiter was like, "Hey, this is the offer, blah blah blah." And I said, "Okay, that's cool, great." And I'm like, "Well, I want $10,000 more dollars."
Mhm.
And so he gasped. He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, I'm like, "Yeah, I want $10,000 more dollars." He's like, I don't think the world's gonna do that." He's like, you might not want to hold your breath." I'm like, "Hey, I know how to swim. I can hold my breath underwater for 20 seconds. I'll wait." So then he started saying like, "Oh, well, you're getting your commission that you made in sales." And I said, "Well,
Well,
I'm getting that whether I stay or leave anyway."
right.
Right. So we hang up. I call my mom and I tell my mom, she's like, well, Corey, she's a baby boomer as well. She's like, aren't you afraid that they're gonna take the offer? I said, well, if they do, I don't need to work there. And
Mm.
so he calls me back
Mhm.
and his tone is completely different. Right. In the beginning, it was kind of like, I wouldn't say argumentative, but it's like negotiating. You know what I'm saying? Like it's nothing personal. He calls me back. He's like calm. He's like, Corey, they're meeting you halfway. And I remember thinking, I'm like, man, I should have asked for 15.
Right.
And then
But
I called my mom. I called my mom. She's like, well, it's obvious you know what you're doing.
yeah, no, I remember my first tech job. Um, my mom was like, I think it was like $28,000 a year or something like that, something low. And I told my mom, and I was like, hey, I think I should negotiate. And my mom was like, oh no, you take that job. That sounds like a good job. They got benefits and this and that and this and that. And I get there and find out uh people in my same role with a different demographic than I have were making 10, 15, $20,000 more
Mm,
than I was, coming from a lesser university because college was everything back then. So I went to Berkeley. So how is it that someone from Delaware State, no offense to Delaware State, but how is that? How come my education that I'm paying for handsomely is not garnering me and it was like the negotiation, partially, but my mom was definitely like baby boomer, like, that's good. Just go on in there and be happy, this and that. And from that moment on, it was on and popping, negotiate like everything. And my mom just be like, you know better than I do. Be like, thanks. Like we
how
from
much
different
money?
generations.
How much money do you think people lose by not renegotiating?
Oh, oh my gosh, millions of dollars over time, over the years.
Mm,
There is laws now that prevent people from asking what you previously earned in your jobs. People still do it. But the beginning of your career, if you have not negotiated hard and gotten the most, then you setting yourself up for loss over and over and over again, unless a company is going to kind of make up the difference. But even they can't make up for all the difference.
mm,
So yeah, I had to learn that the hard way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I went to Twilio, that was the first time I actually renegotiated an offer. And I had like another offer from a different company. And I read a stat that said like at that time, this is like 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018 when I worked there. And the stat was like the average person loses $10,000 annually by not renegotiating, right? And let's talk about it so it's 2024, 6 years later, right? So I would actually put that number up. You
Yeah.
what offer inflation, what 20, 30,000 now on
Really?
average. And so for me, I'm like, I'm renegotiating everything. Like,
Yes, yes. But it it internally you have to have the confidence in yourself, and like, so there's a lot more to negotiating. I think a lot of people don't negotiate because they don't have the confidence. You've been confident since I met you. So you always you were
kind of
courageous
crazy.
coming out here from North Carolina. You didn't know what was going on, but you was like, I'm going. You was
Yeah.
like, liking you to like an explorer or something, like, I'm going out into the seas. I don't know what's out there, but, but I'm gonna go. Very
Yeah.
adventurous human being. So your personality lends itself well to somebody being like, hey, I'm gonna bet on myself. I'm gonna go negotiate. If they say no, somebody else gonna say yes.
Yeah.
There is a very small number of people who think like you do and believe like you do. So keep it
Uh,
up. Keep
Thank
encouraging
you.
folks like that and being an example. I'm a testament to I'm a witness. Call me if people want to know. Cause I'm like, yeah, he came up to Yelp like, hey.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And here's the thing too, Rachel. When I came over, I was like a check away from being broke, like flat broke. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, I had nothing to lose. I did have some Bitcoin at that time, and sadly, I sold some of it to pay for rent. But and then so it's like I'm trying to figure out how the best way to say it. Like I didn't have nothing to lose at that time, so I'm like I have everything to gain. And so now I didn't even renegotiate that offer. at Yelp actually,
Mm,
because I was
mm.
like very just I felt blessed and happy. And I remember they're like, "Hey, we're giving you $1,000 to move here," and I'm like, I remember I got silent on the call and the recruiter thought I didn't like the offer. And I was just like, I need $1,000. Now, if I'm looking at it, I would have asked for like three,
Right,
4 grand, you
right.
know? But at the time I'm like, I didn't know. But
Mhm.
it's like now when I renegotiate, I'm coming from a position of power because I'm like, I got money in the market and
Yes,
I know my worth,
yes,
and I've also been interviewing a lot too. But and
yeah,
so I agree with you that you have to do some internal work to build that up. It's not like you can't just be out here like, oh, I want this. Like it has to be, and you can't ask for something illogical either. What I
yeah,
noticed, like I've had negotiation with people, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like the way they negotiate, or I don't like their tactics. I don't want to work with them because how you negotiate is how you work together too.
yeah.
So it's like it's so for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's all about it's as much as it about compensation is not. It's also like, okay, how are they treating me in this process?
Yeah, yeah.
Because negotiating is fighting is war. Let's be real,
It
right?
is.
But there's like respect in that. I'm like, okay, it's cool,
Yeah.
and I've had that with a few companies where I felt like yeah, I'll be good here. And Twilio is one of those companies that I had a good experience, and I told them what I wanted. They gave me, or they met me. What they gave me, it's funny. I asked for more. I asked for more stock, but they didn't give me more stock. They gave me more pay, and so that's the other thing
Ah,
too. A lot of times,
interesting.
these companies don't tell you what they value the most. You don't find that out until you get into.
Yes. Mm-mm. So much. You need to do a whole session on that at some point for folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but I'm giving you from my side, from just doing it a lot and just being fearless. You got a lot because you helped write the agreement. That's why I like when I got on a Yelp and my cousin Delita, I had a look at the contract and she didn't like it, but she didn't tell me at that time. She's like, oh, this customary, right? So it's
Hmm.
like you have that different lens because you are the one that sits there and implementing this stuff too. So I think that's very valuable too, because like
Yeah.
I've had to learn the hard way about how recruiters think about this stuff. I got a couple scars, you know,
Yeah.
but you don't have those scars. Like you wrote them, you
I
helped write.
know. I was inflicting the pain, I suppose.
Yeah,
Um, but I still I still think that anything and everything is up for negotiation if you're looking at the whole package and not just the money, like time off and all of that stuff. And I sometimes back in my old days, I used to just like, hey, I'm about to take off my recruiter hat. If I saw somebody was struggling with something and be like, I'm gonna take my hat off and I'm just gonna be Rachel. And they'd be like, what? I'd be like, you need to ask for more money. You need and I'd be like, okay, I'm putting my hat back on. Look, good Lord, good, come on. So
yeah,
sometimes I would do that a long time ago. So don't come for me, anybody, Google, eBay, none of y'all. That was a long time ago.
yeah, yeah. Allegedly,
Allegedly.
yeah. So let me ask you this: how should people? So if I'm negotiating right an offer, and I've seen this where in the first step of the interview they're like, oh, we don't negotiate pay. How should a
Uh,
person how should a person, I'm the one receiving the offer or going through the interview process. What should be my retort to that?
um, you understand that maybe the pay is inflexible, but you'd love to see the whole package. So start asking for what is the benefits package? What is the vacation policy? And like, hey, if they have an HR handbook, tell them you'd love to see that because there's some things in there that could be negotiable. So, and I would just say, I appreciate that. And I want to see everything that's being offered. And then when you go through it, call somebody like me, call somebody like Corey, and we will help you go through the whole thing. Be like, okay, so maybe we can't get this, but your HSA, and maybe we can't get that, but they match 401, and maybe let's look at it, the whole thing. There's
Yeah,
money hiding all over the place.
yeah.
Gotta
And
look for it.
yeah, and I know you got to go, but I would also tell people to focus on the learning and development too, because you can use it to buy books, buy conferences. I bought my Afro ticket from with the learning L&D budget from my last
That's a
company.
that's a big one. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Little gems hidden in there that most companies count on employees not using.
I'm gonna get
Don't
mine.
be that employee. They're gonna be like, oh, he's on our nerves. Why he using up all the benefits? Be
Right.
that employee.
Yeah. All right, Rachel, I know you gotta go. This has been lovely. Thanks again. Like, thanks for everything. Thanks for being a mentor, putting me on, taking the time to meet today, sharing this
Of course.
game.
So good.
I want to bring you back too. So this gonna be recurring if you have time. But thanks again for just like blessing me with the opportunity,
Aw.
like for everything. I really, really appreciate it. And I definitely don't take this lightly. So
Oh,
thanks.
well, you've been a blessing to me, just to let you know. So it has been an exchange. It is not one way. You gave me the opportunity to help someone, which is something I wanted to do because it wasn't done for me. So thank you for that. Thank you for showing up to Yelp and set an example. You were a great employee. You
I
did your,
appreciate
yes,
it.
you did your thing. You were not an embarrassment to me at all. I was happy to have you on board. So,
Yeah,
like it's an exchange and I appreciate you. I'm glad you have this platform. Anything to do to help you, I got your back.
appreciate it. Oh, one more thing too. Thank you for like sending that email because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have met John Lewis. And like
Oh my God,
he had been to my hometown
wow.
before. He actually, you from Goldsboro? You know this, bro? I'm like, what? Huh?
Yes. Oh my God. And thinking back on that, see, those are the things that I loved about Yelp that don't happen. I haven't happened really too much since, which is those kind of moments and those kind of opportunities and leaders thinking enough about the company, thinking the company is powerful enough or has a voice out in the world or the type of people that they want to even come and meet and spend time with. So people did think that about Yelp.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, grateful to getting the text while I was on BART. Thankful I had on some decent clothes that day and was looking.
Yeah. I didn't even feel like going to work that day. And I was like, I don't want to go to work. And I was like, let me put a button up on so I can feel better about working. I got the email. I'm like, yo, this is divine. And my manager know who he was. She's like, oh, he sounds important.
I
He's a
remember.
to go. I said, oh, I'm going. Peace. I ain't had no sales calls either. So I'm like, and if I did, I'm like, oh, I'm gone.
Yeah.
But that was an honor. Like, yeah, that was a blessing. Would have never thought I would be meeting John Lewis.
Right.
So
But see,
yeah.
but let me just say this. It is also how you show up. And that, if I can help you focus, like you need to help folks show up how you show up. Cause I wouldn't have sent, you wouldn't have been on that email thread. Not everybody was on that email thread.
Oh, I didn't know.
Not everybody was on that. There was I wanted to make sure that some certain folks showed up who I knew
Yeah.
would show
Yeah.
up in that way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, Rachel. I know you got to go make that money. Thanks, y'all, for
Yeah.
joining Corey State Trapping, Trap Talks, Intersection of Culture and Tech. My dear friend Rachel Williams, head of diversity at Motley Fool. Thank you for coming. Don't make
Yeah.
this the last. We're gonna do this again.
See me again. Bye, y'all.
All right, take care.